crafty friends, it's Jess from jesscrafts.com, and today I wanted to share a video for my One Sheet Wonder template number 11. I did share this in a larger 6x6 paper pad tutorial, but I wanted to share it separately because I know not everyone likes to watch those longer videos. It might get lost in those longer videos, and it's a Christmas video, so people could find this potentially outside of Christmas crafting. So I'm using a Sunny Studio gingham paper pad here. I'm a big fan of the Sunny Studio papers. You've seen them a lot in these One Sheet Wonders because the simple patterns really make some of the designs shine. So I'm picking out a pink and a teal. This card's going to be for my mom, and her favorite color is pink and mine is teal, so I thought it would be a nice combination. I wanted to use some gray cardstock for my mats today because my One Sheet Wonders, I always put mats around my pattern paper. I just like the way it looks. I feel like it's a little more finished, a little more punched up for these simpler cards. I didn't have a source of colors of gray cardstock that I liked that was cheaper, so I am going with the Simon Says Stamp Fog cardstock, which is a little bit pricier but is super nice quality. I start by cutting my 6x6 papers to 3x6, and then I trim that 3x6 piece to 4.5. You do not have to pay attention to the measurements as I am cutting, because all of the information you need about cutting the template is on my blog, and it becomes a PDF that you can print out, which you saw on my desk at the beginning of this video. I'm going to take my fog cardstock, and my mats are going to be about a 1/4 inch bigger. I found that with a little bit of careful placement, I was able to cut all of the mats that I needed out of a single piece of 8.5 by 11 cardstock, and I like when that happens. So that 3 and 1.5 piece is going to be split in two. You could mat them separately, which I'll actually show you how I'm going to do, or you could just mat the whole thing, which to me is quite simple. So I took a 3.25 by 1 3/4 inch piece of paper, like 1/4 inch bigger on both sides, and I used that to mat it. But when I needed 4 of those pieces and I ran out of cardstock, I did not want to cut a whole other piece of fog cardstock because, especially as I mentioned, it's a little bit of a more expensive cardstock. I did not want to cut a whole piece for a small thing. So I decided to take these 2 little scraps where I could cut one side to the right, like the measurement that I needed, because the middle is going to be hidden underneath the cardstock anyway, underneath the larger panel. And therefore, it'll look like it's perfectly matted once it's tucked under, but of course the pattern paper is hanging off here. In general, with the One Sheet Wonders, you can do things like that where if you know it's going to be tucked under anyway, maybe make your mats out of a scrap that is not quite the right size but will do, so you can use up some of those scraps. I am going to take a Accent Opaque 120-pound piece of cardstock, and I cut those all in half, and then I fold them in half again, and that creates an A2 size card. All of my One Sheet Wonders are currently for A2 size cards because that's just my personal preference. As I am attaching this large panel, I want to take a scrap of cardstock and use it to boost the large panel up a bit, because otherwise it's going to lay a little lumpy bumpy, especially when you're using matting and you mat with thicker cardstock. If you're trying to attach part of it to the cardstock and pattern paper and part of it to the card base, you're going to leave a little bit of a bump there. So that's why I added that scrap. And another great way to use up some of those scraps that you might not otherwise have a purpose for. So now now that I've sort of shown you the basic design, I'm going to show you how I'm going to finish off this card as an example. I think that One Sheet Wonder cards can be extremely basic and let you use up a lot of supplies, but I think you can also take that base and go much more complicated and use a lot more of the different things that are in your craft room. And, if you think pattern paper looks too simple, you can create your own pattern backgrounds, for instance. I am stamping from this Simon Says Stamp For All Moms, and it says, "You deserve a latte, love." And I also stamped the coffee cup. So I took a Create a Smile die set, I cut out a banner, and then stamped the sentiment. Separately, on the same accent opaque 120-pound cardstock that I like and I use for a lot of different things in my crafting room, I stamped this in Copic friendly ink, and I'm going to do some simple coloring that I'm going to share with you. I know that I'm going to fussy cut this out. I don't fussy cut a lot, but in this case, it's a pretty simple image, so I decided to fussy cut it because I thought it wasn't worth the time of running through my ScanNCut. I thought by the time, even though I'm going to make 4 cards, by the time I put it in my ScanNCut, I was like, I bet you I might even be able to fussy cut it in about the same amount of time. And the added advantage would be that I could now color outside the lines. So if I'm literally deciding to scribble outside the lines when that's helpful. I use some C markers to create a white lid and a white coffee cup, leaving it plain white. There's not a lot of dimension. It doesn't look very interesting. So I always like to use some really light gray markers. I'm going to add in the colors from the pattern paper I chose. You could have used one single piece of pattern paper, and one single piece of pattern paper will get you 2 cards. I like mixing my patterns and colors, so I decided I would make 4 cards today. I know that's not necessarily everyone's thing, like they're really just looking to try to use up the paper, but for me, I figure it's actually, you're using up more paper, you're making more cards by mixing up the pattern, so that's just kind of my personal preference there. I'm going to be using BG 18, 15, and 13. What can be a little bit tricky is the BG 15 cap looks lighter than the BG 13, but that's not true of the actual markers. To color in pink, I'm actually going to go to my R's. There are RVs, which are like pink colors in Copics, but one of my favorite pink color combinations actually is the R8 family. R81, 83, 85. 89 is quite a bit darker, but overall, to me, it gives a very pink look, and I'm happier with it than I am with a lot of the RVs or the red violets. To add a little bit of interest, I am taking my BG 15 marker and I'm tracing over some of the lines in the Coffee Cozy. And then on the very edges, since I do want that to appear darker in general, I'm taking my BG 18 marker and tracing over those lines. I keep my Copic coloring super, super simple. I did find that at first I used the neutral grays and they were a little too cool compared to the fog cardstock. So how I fixed that is here I'm with the W00 marker, which is a warm gray, and I'm just coating over the coffee cup with the W00 and warming it up, and then the lid I used a W1 to warm it up. So just a little tip there, Copic markers are not completely opaque. And so layering on some additional color can change the tone of things. And that's why a lot of colorists, like when they color very detailed images, will sometimes do an underpainting. I'm sorry that this did not get in focus at all, my mistake there, but I did want to briefly mention that I do like to, if I fussy cut an image, trace around it with a black marker to make those lines a little bit smoother. Now, I decided to add a butterfly to this particular card. I'm not going to add it to all 4 in the card set, but I said that this particular one is special for my mom and she loves butterflies. So I decided to just add that little detail for her, fussy cutting that. I was kind of regretting that I decided to fussy cut when I realized that I wanted to add the butterfly as well. I will take my Barely Art glue to glue down small elements, and then I like to use my ATG for the larger things like the tag or the pattern paper, etc. I'm going to add some Cat Scrappiness Pretty Pink Jewels using my Twiddler's Nook cloud tray. So that allows me to dump all of the gems into the tray and makes them a little bit easier to work with, but also a lot easier to clean up, and I'll show you that. But it's a 3D printed tray. A crafter designed them and sells them as a sort of a very small business on Etsy. So if you have seen these trays and think they're a good idea, I encourage you to check out Twiddler's Nook. Great quality, very cute designs, and supports a small business. So I'm going to add just a couple of the gems there, and you'll see how easy it is for me to pour everything back into this bag. I don't have any fancy sequin gem storage. I just store them in their original packaging. And with those 2 little gems, that is it for my card today. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're interested in more craft tutorials, be sure to subscribe to my channel. In the video description, I'll leave you links to all of the products I mentioned, as well as my other social media in case you want to come follow me on Instagram. Thanks so much for watching. Have an awesome day. Bye.